the year preceding potato planting, you usually have a cereal in there, like a small grain, because that kind of mellows out the soil. So you have a cereal, a small grain, you harvest it, you come in, you deep rip the land, you water, you chemical fumigate, you deep rip again, you deep rip again, then you chisel plow in the spring prior to potato planting. So there's a lot of tillage.
Wow.
There's a lot of chemical fumigation that goes to it. And potatoes, like by nature, they're very invasive. The process or the production of potatoes is very invasive, I guess you could
Hmm.
say, because there's quite a bit of tillage, at least in the conventional model. So a few things that I don't think we could say that we have it perfected, but there's a few things that we've done over the years that have shown very promising results. So I'll just give you a few comparisons of what we currently do versus like a conventional model. And I wrote a couple notes here just to make sure I don't miss anything. But for example, diversity, that's one of the big things. So like I mentioned, in a conventional potato crop rotation, like in a 12-month period, you're getting two cash crop species. You're getting like a cereal and a potato crop. So that soil is seeing only two species, two different
Hmm.
root exudates in that 12-month period. What we're doing is if we have a cereal, then we're coming in with a 12 or a 14 species cover crop. We're planting that in there, and then it's resting until we have potatoes in
Wow.
there next year. So we're having
Wow.
almost 7 times the amount of species in that 12-month rotation as a conventional rotation. So that means, 7 times the amount of species, 7 times the amount of diversity above the soil and below the soil, which we've seen tremendous benefits of cover cropping.
Hmm.
Another big thing, which I mentioned, was disturbance of the soil. So like tillage. So we have successfully reduced tillage to like 75% of a conventional operation, which is very big. And I think when you're comparing apples to apples, and a lot of potato
Wow.
farmers question me all the time, they say, okay, well, how do you get to a point where you can reduce tillage? And it goes back to all the other agronomic practices that you're implementing, whether it's cover crops or whatever you're doing to mellow out the soil and implement. But yeah, so we're reducing tillage by 75%, which has been a very big thing. Living roots and armoring the soil. So, like in that general rotation of a conventional potato operation, they're having like coverage on the soil and roots probably about 33% of the year. And then we're hitting that 80 to 90%
Hmm.
mark of
Wow.
the year where we're having roots in the ground and we're having soil coverage. There's a small window
Wow.
in there when stuff is tilled prior to planting, where you don't have coverage, but we're exceeding that by quite a bit. So we're about 3 times the soil coverage and roots in the ground as a conventional operation. And then, conventional operations, they don't implement animals. There's no animal integration. But what we're doing is we're putting on that 12 or 14 species cover crop.
Hmm.
It matures. We're putting ruminants out there. So we're putting cattle or sheep out there. They're grazing. We're getting animal impact. We're getting nutrient cycling. We're getting the biology
Gotcha.
stimulated. So we're incorporating those animals. The other big thing is we don't use any synthetic pesticides. So conventional operation obviously uses synthetic pesticides. We don't use any synthetic pesticides on our potatoes. And then we have a big focus on compost and biology, versus a conventional operation that focuses more, like on
Hmm.
chemical fertilizers and stuff like that. And then the biggest thing, part of it is with the Nature Conservancy, but we're experimenting in a lot of things outside of like monoculture. So we're doing a lot of companion cropping. We're planting potatoes with vetch or potatoes with buckwheat or potatoes with whatever it is, just to see how diversity affects it and what we can do to maybe reduce the need of a monoculture. And then in addition to that, we're doing pollinator strips. So we're trying to attract like beneficial insects so we don't have to rely on any sort of pesticide, whether that be organic pesticide or a conventional pesticide. So quite a few different things that we're doing different, which we've seen very promising results. Like some of the results that we see that I've wrote down is, so like our earthworm counts compared to a conventional field are 3 times higher than like a conventional field. Um, We've seen
Wow.
increases in our fungi to bacteria ratios, which is very beneficial. And we've seen increases in water holding capacity, organic matter, and then microbial activity, which we get from soil tests and Haney tests, is up at least 50%. So there's lots of indicators and metrics that show, hey, this
Wow.
is
Yeah.
working. We're seeing positive results. We're seeing good things. So I think we're in the right direction. We're still perfecting a few things, but it's progress over perfection for sure.